Thank you, Ñawi, for being here. So looking in the audience here, we have a lot of folks that are farmers, consumers, concerned people of all types, interested in soil health. And the film, which we may or may not get to completely, highlights soil health. So can you tell us from your perspective why soil health deserves so much attention in this moment?
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm a little bit nervous to be speaking to the audience, and of course, new territory, new audience, new people. Hopefully you are able to hear me out there. I will speak a little bit as loud as possible, not to yell, but just so you can hear me. It's a very important question when we think about soil health, but also when we think about our own existence here in this planet. Often we look up to science. Nowadays we're looking into technology and innovation with the perspective that we can gain enough knowledge from technology and science that we will build casinos on the moon. You know, that's kind of the idea that we are going for, because we are depleting a lot of our living soils. And the reason why it's so important is because we live in this earth. You know that we have only reached understanding of soil to the maximum of 15% of what soil actually is. We haven't reached a full percentage of it. And a lot of the soil that we use, a lot of percentage of the soil is in farming, is our food system, is where all our food comes in. We might feel that food, it comes from the grocery store. And you go when you buy it and you purchase it and you get it. But where is it coming from, the food? And nowadays in the US, it's coming from all sorts of parts of the world. It's coming from outside. Because the US, the land of US, we have depleted so much by our own farming practices. The US has done something so wonderful, so beautiful, that is reaching into industrialization and learn from innovation. And in the need, we have been able to grow a lot of food to feed the masses. But that has lowered our diversity in crops. By lowering diversity, we have transformed monoculture. Monoculture is where we are right now, is where our land, our soil has depleted. The reason why we go back and now we are focusing and putting so much importance in soil health is because we depend on the soil to grow food, to survive. But perhaps it's not about surviving. Personally, I don't want to survive. I want to live. I want to thrive. And maybe that's what we're looking when you're farming. You don't just want to cut it close. You actually want to enjoy what you're doing. The soil health comes so handy there because it's not only about the science of soil, it's our moral compass into our ecosystem and how we behave, what we do with it. So it connects. Soil health is not just a connection of science, but it's also our existence as a human being here. That's where we are turning so heavily into understanding soil sciences. But right now, soil health is being viewed purely through the sciences, through measurement, through quantification. And that's because we understand so little of it. We need to start also thinking about it the other perspective. As humans, as citizens, what can we do? What are we learning? Are we accessing this information? And if so, in what capacity are we accessing? Is it accessible? Or is it what will it do? Right? Like a science can become very complicated. And I read a lot of research papers. That's kind of my job, to read a lot of them. And I have experience reading, and I have been reading for a couple of years now, I will say. And when you have a degree in biology, that's kind of what you do. You read a lot of these papers. Even then, I have a hard time understanding what they say. I have to go back and read it again, and read it again. If I were a farmer and I have to plant, forget it. I will not do that. And even after I read it 3 times, I still don't get how it does apply to my current conditions, to my context. My job and the job of us is how we bridge the gap. We are so divorced from soil health sciences to the application part that's humanities. And hopefully, today I will bring some light to what we have learned in the sciences and what does it look like when we apply it in humanities.
That's great. That's a great context to get us started. And you and I were talking earlier about, given the role that soil health can be a bridge, what role does agriculture play in bridging that gap, if any?
It plays a major role. It plays one of those biggest roles that you cannot even start defining it. And as a minute ago, as I was mingling with some of you folks, I was talking with Jackie, and I was saying that this is a wicked problem. We are facing something wicked. And when I mean wicked, I mean it's complex. It's not complicated. It's complex. There's a big difference between something being complicated to something being complex. Complex means that we need to see it from different points of view, understand the root cause, and start from there. Agriculture is a key driven system of how we build community, how we build society. And every time I talk about this, I go back and I think about my own First Nations, our own First Nations. Not just my own, but our own people. We develop agriculture independently in different regions of this world. And we learn different things from the agriculture. Agriculture has been in our heritage so deep ingrained as DNA itself has been. Because it feeds us. It's part of us. The only problem is that nowadays we see agriculture with a utilitarian point of view. Because we have so much economized. We have transformed into agribusiness. We are carrying corners in order to get into the profit. We are not looking into what it means to feed somebody. Now, one day I remember in agriculture, I was a young kid. I grew up with no land. I grew up right after the Spanish colonial period ended in South America. So I was in Ecuador. We didn't have land. We lived in different places. We knew how to farm, but we didn't have land. My people moved from one place to the other place. We had this knowledge, but we didn't know where to put it. But knowledge can be transferred. It's like energy. It can never be destroyed. It can be transferred and adapted to where you are, to the ecosystem. And agriculture plays a crucial role in there. Because we can forage. Many of you that are farmers, many of you that are consumers, when you're walking for a hike, you immediately recognize a plant. And you immediately connect that that plant could be edible, could be medicinal, immediately, unconsciously. You don't have a textbook in front of you to telling you, this is edible, you should eat it. No, it's part of your culture. It's part of it. And that's what I saw with my grandmother. We didn't have a farm, but she would walk away and forage and bring food, feed the grandkids. Farming used to mean that you're caring for somebody, you're feeding somebody, you create a direct connection to it. Farming plays a crucial role in the sense that we can build community through it. But to build community, you need to care for it. You need to go beyond the economics and beyond the agribusiness. You need to go and ask the question, why do we care? Should we care for it? Does it matter? If you cannot answer any of those three questions, then maybe we are in the wrong planet. Maybe we should be literally looking to build casinos on the moon. Maybe that might be the thing. But to me, I believe that we do care. How much do we care is a different question. But I believe that we do care because if you go to the grocery store and you want to eat the apple and there is no apple, you will care. You will say what happened. You will start going back and say like, hey, there is no goddamn apples right here. So now what? Right? Okay, you're not buying, you went going thinking about apples for apple pie. You're not bringing oranges to make orange pie. That's just not happening. At least not for me. So you will care at the moment that affects you. And at that moment is where agriculture plays a crucial role in building community, in connecting to your neighbor, in seeing face to face, in noticing that actually you are part of this living ecosystem. You are not abstract. Just because your fruit comes from a different country doesn't mean that you are not connected to the farmer in that place. It means that you're even more connected so, because that farmer is feeding you. What are you doing is a different question. Maybe it's about thinking about how farming works in here is, you as the customer, am I a regenerative customer? Am I doing something, not becoming a farmer? You don't have to become a farmer for you to be part of agriculture. But where do you buy your fruit? Seasonal, local. Agriculture is about building your community, building your family, knowing who is around you, knowing your ecosystem. It plays a crucial role in humanity.
That's amazing. And I feel like you brought up there something that I think is very interesting to our audience who might be farmers themselves or they're consumers who care about local food and buy their food locally. How do you see that relationship changing as we become professionals? So you described a situation where you knew how to farm, but that wasn't everything about you. We're entering, society the way it's organized, it has, compartmentalized roles. You're specialist in a very specific thing. So can you describe how that dynamic might have changed the connection or the types of connections we have?
Sure, I will do my very best. I will not give you a recipe if that's what you are thinking I have in my pocket. I don't have a recipe to how to solve this wicked problem. But can I talk about my own experience? That I can do. And hopefully that kind of thing connects to you in some way. We are part of a community. Either you are living in the Amazon, in the Andes, or living here, in this section, or you are in Brooklyn, or you are in New York, or in London. You are part of a community. And we are, as a society, we have defined roles. You're a teacher, you're a medical provider, you're a grocery store server, you're a farmer, you're a business person, we do that. And in a way, we have driven to the point of specialization. We are so specialized. So we have a specialty for every single thing. And I noticed that when recently I went back to South America. And until I went back, I didn't know you can get an engineer in marketing. I didn't even know that they existed. But we have get so specialized that we just creating new degrees out of the blue. See, how do you get an engineering in marketing? To me, it just makes no clear sense.
Did you say engineering?
Engineering in marketing. How do you get that? I guess I have to go and get an engineering degree now. In marketing, of course. Because I know the other type of engineering. So, but maybe it's not about us becoming so specialized. When we become so specialized, I feel that we become dependent instead of creating interdependence. You see, a long time ago, when we were living in small societies, in small communities, you celebrated and depended on the farmer that grow you eggs, that had you cheese, and you probably were a teacher, and the farmer depending on you that you educate their kids. You maybe were a baker, so you're depending on the bread. You may be a person that make clothing, you're depending on them. But each of you share traits. It was not a specialty, like you do that and that's it. You don't move out that ecosystem, that box. It was about interdependence. It was a living shared system. So in this case, it's about how do we create interdependence? How do we regenerate that interdependence? What can we do to understand that we are driven so much and depending from somebody else? Like right now in the food system, at this moment, we depend so much from the input from outside. Like the way the diet, the food system, all these big grocery stores that we buy a lot of food depends heavily from imports. dependent, instead of depending from the small farmers. Instead of growing the circular economy that exists in this. And that's because there is a need of conversation about how do we regenerate interdependence. So it's not necessarily about divorcing yourself from one trade, but rather understanding that you have a gift, a set of skills that you can share within your community. So for me, at least, has been, I know how to farm, but then I figured out that I'm way more curious. When I see a plant, I start thinking like, how does photosynthesis work? What is happening in this? How does it grow, this plant? What is in there? So for me, it's curiosity. So I decided to go and study plant sciences. And then when I was in plant science, like, something underneath in the roots is happening. So I decided to go and study soil sciences and microbiology and root sciences. So I get specialized in those things. I am a soil scientist, I'm a plant scientist, and now I'm talking to you. I'm not in the lab, but I was in the lab a couple of days ago, but I'm not there right now. I haven't divorced myself of my social responsibility. That whatever knowledge that I have gained throughout this specialization should be shared, should be brought up in a sense that we can argue and discuss and be put out to the community to be decide, is this the right thing to do? Should we research in this direction? Where else we should be spending energy? And I think then is a specialization is useful because some of us, we see the social responsibility to look for answers in the unknown. But those answers need to be brought up and shared with the rest.
Yeah, that's incredibly insightful and I think timely. We talk a lot here about being in a small place, in a small town where we do depend on each other. And many of us here probably understand that. But could you tell us more about the utility of, or that's not the right word, how we can structure relationships in a way that acknowledges the science and acknowledges the sort of information you have about what's going on beneath the soil, because many of us feel that responsibility. So how does that translate? What is the role of that information?
The role of the information is making more accessible and make it in what kind of form is accessible. As a farmer, right now we don't see a lot of the Black, indigenous, and people of color farmers in here, and the immigrants. They speak different languages, and they don't really speak very good English, or don't read English. So when we think about this information, it needs to become accessible across the board, and it needs to be more engaging with the farmers, and it needs to be able to communicate a practical thing that you can do. And the problem is that we are so caught up with quick results. You do something right now, and you want the outcome to be immediate. Soil health, or the NRCS called climate smart practices, those are a long-term outcomes within a year or 2 years. But there is small things that we can do that can really change your farming methodology. And one of them is living roots. How can you maintain your soil alive throughout the season? And one of them is cover crops or service crops or noble ecosystems that really helps you to tame the soil microbiology, really bring back those nutrients, circle back. And that's a short-term thing that we can do. And that's science. Right there is a science. The problem is that in science, we like to define some terms that are just very unknown to regular folks. Unknown. As a farmer, you take a handful of soil, take a look. At least when I was out there farming, I would take a handful of soil, put it in the nose, just smell it. And when I was feeling a little bit crazy, I would just put it in my mouth. That tastes like coffee. Must be good. Let's plant some corn in there. And then you see that that's like, yeah, that was good corn, that worked. See, like, as a farmer, you understand your own ecosystem. But the thing is that we are not talking. Scientists and farmers, we're not talking. We are not understanding your local context. You need, like, where else do you need us to go and look for those unknowns? Like, a nutrient management is a big thing in farming. But we are not know that. We don't know where exactly is the gap that you need. With a scientist, I have seen colleagues of mine. They spend day and night in the lab looking into rice. Do you grow rice? Any of you grows rice? No, right? So to me, it's like that's kind of the thing that it kind of baffles me when I see research that we don't prioritize things. We should be looking at our local context. What is the things that we're growing here within, let's say, New York State? What is the main thing that we're growing? We should also be focusing in what is happening here. And then we can focus on the global needs, which is rice. It's a global need. But we're missing that. We're missing that conversation. And as a soil health educator, that's my role. To go out there. To kind of sit down. Make you laugh. When something that makes no sense. You laugh, I laugh, and then you start telling me about your problems. We build trust, and then hopefully we build community. And hopefully we'll build friendship. And hopefully we come up with a solution for a wicked problem that you have in your farm. Not in agriculture, but in your farm. Most of these techniques is about context, soil types, ecosystems. But we need a conversation. We need to be talking. We just very divorced from one point to the other one. And hopefully I can help to bridge the gap.
One thing that I get trapped in when I think about the small farm and our small farm is the science and terminologies like organic or regenerative or these things. I find myself trapped in the idea that there's certain measures of those things that can be classified as regenerative or organic. And it feels good when you do it. You're like, great, I can just stamp this thing and, you know, I did it right. I did well by the soil or by the earth. But what you're talking about is more inclusive of social elements. And so, you know, how do we get out of the language and the science and the rubrics that we use to measure whether we're being stewards of the earth?
I think it's both. We need both. We need both parts. We need science to inform society, and we need society to inform science. But we cannot get caught up in what the economical theory it has put us in our mind. Economical theory tells us that we need to continuously grow, and we need to be productive, no matter what. No matter what you do, either you're a doctor or you're a farmer, each year you should be growing by X percentile. Your revenue should be growing each year. So small farmers, or me as an educator or a technical specialist, that's what they told us in the university. Like, your job is to go out there and help a farmer to make more profit. And even when we talk about soil, I don't know if you have noticed this, but when you read something or you look it up, they say soil productivity. You focus on the economy, how much can you grow? And you focus on the poundage. How much pounds can you grow by a parcel of land, by a section of land? It never asks you, are you satisfied? Are you happy? Do you feel you have truthfully contributed as the larger picture of this ecosystem health? There is no checkbox in there for that. Not at least from what I have seen. Both things are important. And the way that I see it, the way that I discuss the issue, is that we need to start slightly thinking about our own perception and perhaps focusing a little bit about our own socio-cultural context. For instance, regenerative agriculture. At the beginning, and it's not a new term, by the way. Regenerative agriculture started back in the 80s. It started. Rodell Institute started it, make it a little bit more popular. In the last 5 years has become the hashtag to put it out there, by the way. Hashtag regenerative, hashtag regen ag, hashtag Minder, add Ñawi, hashtag blah, blah, blah. You know, and I remember when I started my education in agriculture, I was in Israel, studying in the desert. And back then, at that moment, the period of time, it used to be sustainable agriculture. It used to be that thing. How we make the desert sustainable used to be a phrase. I have the answer. Make casinos in the moon. And say, yeah, that works. But seriously, we start looking into the science to make it more sustainable in there. And that was the first time I was introduced into nature-based solutions. So the desert has no vegetation. Have you noticed that? I don't know if you have noticed it, but I was surprised when I walked in and said, what happened with the trees? Where is the grass? It's like, dude, you are in the desert. It's like, okay, that makes sense. Makes sense. I come from the Amazon, so forgive me. Different ecosystems. I just flew here, no English. Let me try, what up? So I started looking at this, and I realized science is in a way mimicking what I have seen in the Amazon. You see, in the Amazon, nobody has a PhD. At least my grandma didn't have. And I brought up a book one time, and she looked at it and put it in the fire. She thought it was to ignite the kitchen. It doesn't wobbly good because she doesn't read or write. And my mother too. So it's like, can I use this to ignite the stove? It's like, sure, why not? I read it. So I look at it and I see this very interesting two different ecosystems, different opposites, if I will, day and night. Similar approach. They were looking into nature to harness trees, in this case, acacia trees, to condensate a lot of the fog in the morning and bring the water into not just growing any regular thing. They were growing freaking watermelon. And from my plant science knowledge, hashtag plant sciences, I learned that watermelon needs a lot of water. And these guys are growing watermelon in the desert when a fog. What? Are you serious? I think I remember when I was in the Amazon. In the Amazon we use cassava or yuca, if you know, yeah? By the way, hashtag cassava chips. Really good? Really good? Yeah, it's like, yes, cassava. Yeah, Whole Foods, $7 the bag. Yes, when I live with salt and pepper, $10, of course. You need to pay for the pepper. Think about the pepper used to be currency during the 1400s, right? So you need to pay for it, by the way. Just eat it with salt, it's good enough. So in the Amazon, we did exactly the same thing. We didn't clear cut the forest. We took the cassava plant, we chop it, we walk, we went to fishing, we went hunting. You will take this stick it in the ground. And then you will forget about it. Just forget about it. You come back next season, when you go hunting again, you know what? This got some tapir when the cassava root. Really? It just happened? And I saw this mimicry. And that's what I believe nature has done something so wonderful to us. And we kind of has been so much giving credit to science, to the scientific methodology. We give it so much credit, and it's valid. I'm a trained scientist, so it's valid. But it's also valid that we all have experienced nature, and we all have learned a lot of knowledge. So maybe it's about bringing both knowledge to converge and transform. So when I talk about this, what I like to do is, let's think about the local ecological knowledge. Inside you, there is so much knowledge. Because you are in the land constantly, you are looking at it from different perspectives of the problem that you have. Science, it should be a tool to be added, to converge the knowledge and to transform it into practical practices, and to put it into action. It shouldn't be the other way around. It shouldn't be science overruns your knowledge. Science should be converged with the local knowledge. If we don't do that, we give too much power. And again, if you Google the word power, it has some terrible consequences when you do that. Don't do it. I did it one time. I almost didn't went to sleep because I just kept reading it. I give you the trouble. Don't do it. Bad idea. If you have time and you get bored, definitely.
Is there something that I like what you said? You're like, I don't have all the answers. You can't ask me a question. You get all the answers, and obviously we wouldn't expect that. But I think your perspective is unique, and I appreciate you sharing so much. One of the things that you mentioned was that the things that we are focusing on now in soil health, maybe they're guided by science. Maybe they're even guided by good science. But so many of these practices and techniques are not new. They're not cutting edge. They require almost no technology. So can you fill us in a little bit about your perspective on how this gradual forgetting has happened, and what we can do to get back to that thing that we think is new, but is actually very old.
Are you guys ready for a while, right? It's gonna be bumpy. I'm freaking confused. By the time this thing ends, you will be like, what? I just came for cookies and milk, and this guy just make me more confused? I promise you, that's gonna happen. But the answer to that, I want to take you back to 1491. That's what I want you to take you first. Back then, I want you to take. Now, let's for a minute, let's just forget about Thanksgiving for now. But what I want you to picture in that moment is, think about 1491. Think about that. How does the landscape look like? Is it populated? Is it empty? Is it free? Is it up for the taking? Now, that's the first question that you ask. Then, I like when you say, yeah, dude, the church tells us that is doctrine of discovery. But truly, it was not. The techniques of soil health, there are 4 principles. Just 4 of them. They are very simple. Very, very simple. And I will go one by a time. The first one is continuous living roots. That's the first soil health principle. That's it. You can Google it, you can cite it. Every institution, every agency, it will bring it up the same thing. Continuous living roots. The second principle is called reduce disturbance. It meaning lower your amount of tillage, the frequency with which you are tilling your soil. That's reduced frequency. It's not saying if you're really feeling like I know this, then you can go no till. When you're like, I really want to grow something slightly more adventurous, then you can go strip till. Now all of them is all about reducing the frequency with which you disturb your soil crust. So the next one is biodiversity, increasing biodiversity. And sometimes people think about when you say biodiversity, it's like, yeah, I see some insects flying around, some birds chickling around, and I see some chipmunks in there. That's biodiversity. That's not what it means. It means biodiversity, it means your cropping system. It's not a monoculture. You have a variety of crops that are growing within some distance. And some of you might be more adventurous to do intercropping, companion planting. You're taking advantage of your own knowledge to say, this plant and this plant, they go very good together, so let's grow together so we save space. No, that is biodiversity. When you have a biodiversity of plants above ground, the same thing happens below ground. And that part is where a lot of folks get completely lost, the below ground part. Because below ground is actually the machinery, is what is driving your soil, the below ground part. Plants, they are like a farmers to society. Think about them. Plants are like a farmers to society. Plants take sunlight, carbon dioxide, they measure together inside their tissue, and when they pressurize it, they bring sugars. Those sugars, they just don't leave the plant. No, those sugars need to follow gravity, and it follows gravity into the root system. And those sugars are meant to feed your soil biology. Your soil biology, on the other hand, releases all the nutrients that are in your soil. So do you have to really add fertilizers? Questionable. It's questionable. It depends how you manage your soil. There are some occasions when, yes, you want to add some fertilizers, but you want to be very cautious of it. How much you add it, at which time you add it, and all depends on your soil type. But for the sake of the argument, let's say that you have a good management, so your soil should be releasing enough of those nutrients for your plants. That's number 2. The last one is about your organics, or maintaining your soil cover. You want to maintain your soil cover across the year. Cover is not the same thing as leaving continuous roots, because cover can mean you can add mulch, manure, hay, straw, or you can graze your animals, and the animals trumps all the vegetation and they leave a cover. That's cover. So there are only 4. So let's go back to the 1400s, 91. I imagine myself standing and looking over the landscape. I see some First Nation folks running around doing things, but I don't see a classical farming as we know it. Your classic little sections, your classic clear land. This is where everything goes. This is your forest. This is it. This is where the kids can go. This is where the adults can go. The elder citizens somewhere else. Forget about it. Yes, just forget about it. And we section all of them. But there is no field. And the reason because the first principle continues living roots. That's as old as us. Indigenous First Nations, they maintain their roots cover continuously. They land and maintain cover. That's why they used to use fire clearing management, because the ground was continuously covered. And right before planting, they will manage it with fire to reduce all of the vegetation down into usable biochar. Something that nowadays you are buying it in Amazon, from Amazon. What? Something just happened in there. Yeah, that was hilarious when I Googled like, where can I buy some biochars? From the Amazon. In Amazon. You lost me there. By the way, the Amazon is not called Amazon. It's called Inyan. That's how we call it. That's the First Nation name for the land. It means our forest. Inyan. Amazon is actually just another confused word that somebody came like, there is some warriors in there. And those guys have long hair. There must be women. What is in Greek to say strong people that wants to defend the land? Amazons. Let's call it Amazons. Hooray! We did it. We discovered the Amazon. No. What you walk into is Inyan. You're walking into our forest. When we talk about cover crops, And this is where a lot of farmers get very confused when we talk about cover crops, because you think about cover crops, it should be something that you want to spend a lot of money, a lot of economy goes into it. Cover crops could be multiple things. Could be a cash crop, a short-term cash crop. Peas, they are short-term cash crops. And here in the US, we eat sweet peas, young peas, before even they become a true pea. Beans, we eat green beans. No, well, in here, most of you don't eat lentils, but there is cultures from Asia, from India, indigenous people, we eat lentils, or hairy vetch, as you might know it. Those are edible crops. Mung beans, you might see as a cover crop, but culturally, they have so much significance and so much nutrition to it. So when we look into cover crops, sometimes we're not looking into the cultural intelligence approach of it. If you just see cover crops, they have multiple functions. It's not a lost investment because there is a market for it. The only thing is that you don't know your local market. You don't know the cultures that they feed on these things. And I did this experiment in New York City. In New York City, by all cities, the less. I created a project in collaboration with other scientists and artists, and let's make a list of cover crops. Let's say if it's true about this idea that cover crops are extremely expensive and that's why farmers don't use it. Let's see how much I invest right now. I can put a little bit of research into finding the market segment. Can I sell this to these communities? I put it. I tripled my money. I bought X poundage of cover crops, I planted. By the time I was done, I have tripled my profit. The reason is because nobody is looking into these markets. Everybody is looking into Whole Foods, into Trader Joe's, into Amazon. They are looking into going into these huge things because theory economy tells us that we need to grow. The prestigious you name, the bigger your growth is. And that's not true. Because those companies is asking you every single time to use this, to use that, don't grow this, don't grow that, I want you buy you only this poundage or that poundage. They put you so many levels, so many things. And that's what I did for 2 years, in 2018 to 2020, when Cornell Extension. I actually worked with small farmers to try them to help them bring into markets. And that was the struggle. The markets always ask for this certification, to this thing, to that thing. So by the time you're done with the paperwork, I don't want to farm anymore. And I was only the technical services provider. Imagine if I was a farmer. And on the other hand, if you just take it to your local community, to these market segments, they just buy it. They are not asking you, do you grow it yourself? I guess you did. No, they just buy it. That's another one. Cover crop. So it's about your own knowledge, but at the same time, understanding where you exist. And one of the things that I think that soil health, those principles in the science, other part that we are not using is cultural intelligence in agriculture. We are now understanding those farmers. We are now getting to know them. We don't know the culture we have. We are living in a globalized society. If you don't believe it, you should look around yourselves. Nobody been in here before the 1400s. Everybody migrated. I migrated. I migrated in 2016 to study English. And then I was like, I like this place. Let me study college. And then I started my undergrad and my graduate school and so forth. So we moved here. And the thing is that we need to learn the culture, the local context. And then you will figure it out. Actually, these soil health principles are not cutting edge. It's just a transformation from one point to the other point. For instance, these principles actually started with the discussion of traditional agriculture. Mm-hmm. Traditional agriculture is the techniques that we use in farming. Then it moved to sustainability, sustainable agriculture. And sustainable agriculture brought us to economy, how we can make farming more sustainable, but at the same time we still drive economy. Then we brought up organic agriculture, and slightly start transforming into more economics. Nowadays, you label something organic is double the price. It has moved into that. Now we are in regenerative. What I like, two terms I like to use when I discuss with farmers is agroecology and heritage agriculture. I like to use. Heritage agriculture, it focus, or at least I like to focus more in your knowledge, in your local knowledge, in where you have learned. Some of you are farmers for second generation, third generation. You have been farming as far, or even more so, that I am a technical service provider. You know about your land and what you want to do way better than anybody else. That's your heritage. Believe it or not, that is part of your culture. But we just say, like, I am a third farmer generation, and you forget about that. That's part of your building, your cultural building. So I like to bring cultural heritage in the discussion. To bring back and say, like, soil health methods has gone through the modification and adaptation as we build different terminologies we are building. Now, if you are in dairy farming, now we have different terms for that, right? We have agroforestry, silviculture, all of those things is animal husbandry. And most of them, it comes from the early ways that how animals was taken care of. Cattle, horses, the early days. Nowadays, we're thinking about, like, let's not pack these animals so much. Maybe it will be a problem. Yes, we have learned that a long time ago, that if you put in a confined place, animals will get sick. So we just need to relearn, reconnect with our culture. And you will start figuring it out that these methods right now, you have been doing it. You just haven't using the terminology to put it into perspective. And sometimes when you're applying into grants, that's important to recognize. Recognize that you already been doing it. Sometimes you don't need to change your farming method. Maybe you just need to describe it to fit the description of the grants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you were speaking about 1491, I immediately became uncomfortable because this is obviously a part of a cultural heritage that many of us have an uncomfortable relationship with. And so, is there a way, in your opinion, is there a way for us to embrace that heritage and also learn from what I would say is truly the heritage of a place here? So is there a way to approach that? Is there a way to approach that?
I think there is. There is a place to discuss this topic. And I think it's not about ignoring it. Ignoring it doesn't do any good. But maybe finding a place that it brings both a little bit being uncomfortable, but being comfortable is very good. And I like to put this terminology in front of you. Symbiotic indigeneity. It means you have created a symbiosis when the place that you are right now, right here, right now. You belong to this place. You also has created memories in this place. So asking you to move away and completely acknowledge and give back the land to the First Nations is also not possible. Because you already has attachment to the land. Beyond where the property value is more a symbolical value at this point. You have many memories attached to it. You have created symbiosis to this ecosystem. That's where the second part of the term comes in, indigeneity. How can we create a conversation, an engagement with my local community that we can appreciate that we are both now in this moment in time? Let's not only talk about the past. What was the cruelty? What was happening? Because the past, we cannot do anything about it. I cannot go back to the 1400s. Maybe if I go back, I will be fighting a war too. Maybe I will die. No, we cannot go back there, but we can do something now. And I think indigeneity means to find a place of origin, a belongingship to the ecosystem where you have created a symbiosis, where you have created memories, where you have created a family, a community. And all of us, we have done that. And here we have been long enough to create those memories. So it's approaching to those lenses. Not so much thinking, my ancestor did this, I don't want any of that, so not my fault, nothing happened, I'm not doing it, so I'm not socially responsible for this history. That's also not helpful. But if you recognize that there was a past divorce, because that's exactly what happened. There's a divorce between First Nations, minorities, the African community. There is a divorce with them. We have divorced so far that we are unwilling to meet them halfway. And also the other end is also true. They are also unwilling to meet you halfway. It's not just only your part. That's what I like symbiosis indigeneity, because it centers in each of us. It doesn't center so in all the social, cultural history that is put a weight on top of us. But this is what can we do now? What is possible? And this idea is with the idea of a 7th generation ahead of you. Most of you, like myself, we are not getting farther away. I'm very old, by the way. Yeah, the people say you look very old, and I say, like, yeah, 101, what can I do? That's what happens. Life happens. So for us, there is no more generation. This is it. This is the only generation we have. But hopefully we have descendants. And they will be local descendants. They will have created indigeneity within this land. How can you ask them to be moved away? How do we limit their life within this ecosystem? That's also not possible. But we need to reconcile in the sense of a dialogue, in the sense that we both have a symbiosis in here, and we both belong to this land. If we recognize this, we will also open a space for how nature exists in here. Because right now, we are in a battle. If you notice or not, we are in a battle. We are against time. Either you believe it or you don't. We are inside climate change. We are inside it. It's not that it's coming. No. It's not coming. That's the problem when all these papers and all of that, they say, by 2030, I don't believe it. I like to say we are inside the emerging present. We're inside climate change. We are in a battle. We are in something that we need to come together as a symbiosis, as a living system, as part of it. And to do that, we need to belong to some place. And we belong here. And that's indigeneity. That removes a lot of what most of us, we think, colonization. And opens the doors for a conversation, for a connection with our fellow men. Not fellow men, but humankind. As a humankind. Reaching, moving beyond empathy and sympathy. Reaching into compassion. Thinking from that point of view. I think it's possible.
That's beautiful. I think that's really sobering and inspiring. Where you got us to is this place that we're experiencing this problem. It's a problem we collectively created. It's generations old. And you and I have talked about this, but how do those of us here who feel responsible, maybe some of us are farmers, we want to do well by the land, maybe some of us are consumers, we're supporting, our farmers economically and things like that. How do we bring less frantic energy to these crises? I fall victim to that myself. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a problem. We have the soil health crisis, peak soil, we have climate change. So how do we take a pause? How do we respond to these problems and not react to them?
I think the best way to answer that question is through oral history. And I think that's what society, we are meant to do as society. We carry on knowledge, we pass it down, we provide lessons. And with that frame of mind, and to answer that question, I will allow myself to share a history that comes from my own culture, from where I'm from, that I think directly reaches into what I have learned in economy and business. And I have tried to fight it off. I mean, it may start like this. You see how we are trained to be proactive or reactive in most levels. Now at least in my training, in my business degree, it's like a strategic planning is about getting the problem before it becomes a problem. Take it away. Just make the machine oil. It never stops. It never has to stop. It needs to keep rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. At least that's what they train me to do. And then I was back in Ecuador. I was helping some farmers in a discussion that we have when some environmental problems. And I was about to do exactly the same thing. What I was trying to do. Find the problem. Fix it. And allow this machine to run. That's how I was preparing. I was drafting an eloquent speech with beautiful citations. And this is why we need protection to the land. And I was about to pound in the desk and so forth. Throw my water bottle. That's it. I'm gone. I was drafting this, but my mother comes in. And you see me like all over. I was like hot. I was up in the Andes for crying aloud. It's cold. I was hot with no button shirt, just in pure t-shirts. Like, you're crazy. Like, what's going on? So I'm preparing to go and defend the land. We charge. And then she said, remember the history? I said, what history? I have heard so many histories. I said, the history. You have left this nation, your culture, everything, in the pursuit of knowledge. But you have forgot the most important part of pursuing knowledge. And I sit down to listen to this. And he said this. Well, this history was passed down from my grandmother to my mom, and then it passed down to me, and I will do my very best to pass it down to you guys. He said, right after the colony, the Spanish colony take over the Andes, right after that, there was a lot of destruction in the land and in all the buildings. So there was an indigenous thinker, a philosopher, if I will. He was sitting in a rock, in this road, in the middle of the road, looking over a landscape, just looking at it. He sit down and day after day, just sitting there, looking the landscape, what it was broken, what it looked like it before, what it looks now, what it will look later on. He kept going over and over again, the same thing, thinking and thinking. So one day, as he is sitting, a conquistador approached to him. And they meet in the intersection. They meet. And the conquistador asked the thinker and said, what are you doing? And the thinker said, I'm presencing. I'm looking what it was, what it is, and what it looks like. The conquistador said, what a waste of time. He could be doing anything. He could be farming. He could be protesting for what he cared. He could be fighting to regain the land. He was just sitting in there, doing nothing, getting bored. What a waste of life. So as the conquistador was going on with all these things, the thinker asked the conquistador, what are you doing? The conquistador said, I'm conquering the world. The thinker thought, what a useless thing to do. That world is already conquered. So there is a lesson in there. At least for me in business, that's what I learned. We are so caught up in the urgency when all this nowadays, the media, in all sorts, it could be public radio, private radio, TV, not TV, movies, movie stars, Twitter, TikTok, this, that, and everything is, climate change is killing us, whales are dying, microplastics are in our fish, only eat tuna, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. And it gives us this anxiety. It puts anxiety inside you. Urgency. I need to do something. And the easy thing to do, and this is like I talk about this with my students when I teach a class in college. Say, what do you do? You're a college student. What do you do? You're young. What do you do? See, I posted on Facebook. I tweeted. Do we really care beyond 10 characters what is happening? Yes, we do. The problem is that they have put us so much of the pressure that it haven't allowed us to the information even sink in, even seeing what is happening in my reality, in my context at this moment. What it was, what it is, what is the emerging present. You didn't presence it. You just reacted to it. And when you reacted, you just created a ripple effect. More people now is stressed. More people is going through the same process. More urgency and more urgency. Science is important in this sense. Because science, it helps us to rethink and presence what is happening right now. And hopefully show us a direction to what is looking into the emerging present, not the future, but the emerging present, because you will be in this present. You will be part of it. That is an indigenous thinker point of view. You sink in with the information, you presence it, and you evaluate before you react. Now, that also has a side effect. It means that you can completely be passive, ignore it. It's like, that's not my problem. That's somebody else's beeswax, not me. And this is where I think the other section of this story comes very handy, the conqueror mentality. There is a time in our lives that we also need to be active. We need to take action towards something. Hopefully the action is following a moral compass, a social responsibility that is in the interest of a community, not just individually. So, in order to actually slow down and perhaps be a little bit bored once in a while, is not a thing. This history I actually taught about yesterday. I was bored. I was thinking, I'm bored. What should I do now? I thought this story would be good for this guy. So I thought about it as I was getting bored. Instead of reading more papers, to come and give you data. It's like, no, let me talk from the heart. Let me talk from experience. I learned that we need both. And sometimes you want to be a thinker. You want to be an indigenous philosopher. In other ways, you also want to be a conqueror. You want to act. Don't be just the extreme ends. Be the balance. Sit down with the information. Find more information. Take the best decision that will have the least unintended consequences. Any decision that you take will have some consequences, but hopefully it has the least consequences. And right now in climate change, that's what is missing. Culture intelligent technologies are missing right now. We are charging Okay, have you heard carbon credits? Anybody has heard that? Hashtag carbon credits. Hashtag buy my carbon credits. Hashtag we saving the world one tree at a time. Anybody has heard that? Huge investments. Getting on the roof. Yo. Wall Street is loving it. It's loving it. Like, stocks is going. And then I just saw like a Forbes magazine article and a New York Times article. Why is CEOs 30 under 30 in jail? I know why. I know why. I don't have to be a lawyer to know why. I just know why. I just need to see the data. That's why.
I'm so glad that you opted to talk from the heart. We're all the direct benefactors, and I think when you were talking, I was thinking, I'm really glad, because you could have given us a scientific talk, but we would have left here no more inspired. So we'd miss half of the equation, and I'm so glad that you shared that with us. And I just keep remembering when you use these idioms like, that's someone else's beeswax. I have to remember this is your fifth language, and that somehow the things you're saying in English make sense, but I can't believe it. I really cannot believe it. You're very impressive, gentlemen. So we're at a good place here. I kind of wonder whether we shouldn't watch this film or parts of this film with a new perspective. I'm also very happy to keep talking with you.
It's good. At this point, I would like to interact with you guys, because I can talk to you guys.
Perfect.
Because otherwise, just hearing him talk to me, I just feel very egocentric. I know what to say. I don't know what to say. I just answering questions in the best of my abilities. But if you have questions and you want to ask me, and we can interact, have a conversation, I would love that better, to have a conversation and talk a little bit about maybe some of the other projects that work with, and maybe that will inspire to do some of the work that it could be possible in your own line of work and what you're doing. So completely up to the audience. If you're tired to hear me, just say like, boo. Okay, we move to the movie.
That's great. I don't have a wireless mic to go around, but I hope that your work does come up. I know that the spotlight's on you, and you're a humble guy, but we'd love to hear about your work. But sure, let's open it up for questions, and we can hear from some of the folks in the audience. That'd be great.
I think this is the longest microphone.
Well, you said you might want to pace. So
I did want to pace, but then I found like a comfy chair. Also, you guys need to remember, I'm 101. I just turned 101.
You deserve the rest.
The hip.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, hip is giving up right now, so just trying to figure it out.
Any questions? Go ahead, Chris.
When I think of soil health, I'm encouraged by what I see around here. And, I spent a lot of time in the Midwest, where it's total monoculture. And when I think about soil health there, I think it's driven by the agricultural schools that really promote chemical farming. And it's all science-based, but it's all based around chemical farming and killing everything in the soils. And so could you please comment about how agricultural schools have influenced soil health in our country?
Very good. Very amazing question. Like I said, my full-time job is in the south, and I work for the regenerative cotton fund. So cotton, as you know, is a huge monoculture, huge industrialized crop. And we are facing exactly the challenge, the barrier. When we see these new agronomists coming out of university, they coming in with this perspective of, once again, it's about profit. How we make these farmers more profitable. And in that challenge, we are facing problems like a pest resistance weeds, or we just have a lot of weeds. We have introduced new pests. So in order to combat all of that, in university tends to focus a lot in the chemical aspect of soil, how we can remove any intrusion of it. And the curriculum, it needs to be modified. It needs to be modified in the sense that it needs to be more context-based, crop-based, and also it needs to be incorporated in the curriculum of agricultural science, it needs to go through a systemic design change. It needs to really look into, I think it,
Go for it.
you need to look more into the idea of what is happening right now. You know, right now the USDA and NRCS is moving forward into climate smart practices. Why are we not teaching this in the universities? What is it holding us back? Well, it holds us back because a lot of the professors that are in there, they are from the 1400s. They just want a school that still has the idea of traditional agricultural methods that in their generation it worked. It was profitable. So there is a combination of two things. A combination of your work experience as a professional that you see in work, but also there is a combination of analogy. And most of our younger students, and have you noticed the other thing? I just was in a talk when a professor from Iowa, and we were looking into perspectives of pest resistant in these commodity crops, corn and soy. And she did a beautiful survey about technical service providers. And this is true also for agricultural schools. There is no diversity in these schools. There is no BIPOC community in these positions of professorships. So there is no cultural intelligence brought up into these curriculums. This is still being taught up in one language, in one perspective. We need to start changing. You as a farmer, you as a citizen, you as the person that might have a grandson, a neighbor, somebody that's interested in agriculture, that we need to start thinking about. What kind of schools are more progressive, are moving into a system design change into the agriculture field? Is in the curriculum, and we haven't been able to crack it. Yeah, for instance, I'm not teaching agricultural school. I teach these topics in a course I teach in molecular biology and microbiology. I am so interested in this idea of reaching cultural intelligence that I find ways, no matter where I am, to really think about this. It is about our own perspective, where we are. We need them. We need a system design change. And one of my passions, the reason why I have been gaining knowledge more and more in the Western way of knowledge, is because, sadly to say, people like me, First Nations, immigrants, and BIPOC, we need credentials. Not just any credentials. We need as many credentials as possible in order to people to listen to us, or to give us those positions to make real change. But we need to stop some way. If I just stop and wait until it's my turn, I will lose the bus. I don't want to lose the bus. I want to make sure that I'm putting some effort towards that. That's a beautiful question. I like it. So that's what I said. Let's have a conversation.
At will, please.
As you were talking about monocultures, I know a lot of times you're referring to things like maybe corn or soybeans that are grown in like such large quantities. But I guess in terms of like a lot of different crops, like what role do you think crop wild relatives might play in like reducing monocultures, and if it is possible to sort of popularize other types of subspecies of the
That's what I like younger minds. Say, that's what I love it. The power of cassava, right there. The Amazon inside, powered by cassava. I powered myself by cassava too. Yes and yes. Think about what is happening in other countries besides our own country, besides the US. You see, India, Central and South America, they export all the things that they grow. In the corn, they export it. Yellow and white corn, they export it. But they don't export the good stuff. Black corn, purple corn, pinto corn. Do you buy it at the supermarket? If you buy it, you need to pay a little extra because they are rare. They come from rare. And those are the crops that she's describing. those more perennial crops that has been persistent within those cultures. When those areas that we understand it in here as exotic. Remember when I said a minute ago about cover crops? How we don't see the value of those cover crops? Mung beans and pigeon peas. Mung beans are from Mongolia. But because we haven't eaten it, we don't see the value in those. In order to make it more popular, we need to start entering into these market segments, into those cultural segments. But also we need to start influencing our restaurants to start using it. And I have seen in New York City that conversation taking place. It has to be in the city to have this conversation. Because I went to Peru a couple of years ago, and I was hiking Cusco, farther away from the city, farther away. I had to take a bus for 2 hours. Then I had to walk 45 minutes to arrive to a restaurant to which I had to pay $300 in Cusco to eat native food. I just did that. I did. I couldn't just turn around, go to my neighbor, and just sit down and eat the food that she cooks. But then again, okay, I got my education here. So I just traveled $300. But what I'm going by this is that this restaurant has made it so popular that people flies from around the world to eat in there. Because he is promoting this idea of resilience, circularity. That's the things that we are not discussing. How we make a circular economy. How do we have a conversation with First Nations? Those crops that you mentioned, those are First Nation crops, those perennial grains. How can we talk with them? Can we create a partnership to grow them? To learn the technique of growing them? Because we can not only rely on science to grow those crops. We need, why did they grow it? When did they grow it? And how they eat it? How they cook it? That's so important. It is you presencing with these First Nations that can make it possible. And people like me are for facilitating that conversation. That's what we need. We need to open it up, a conversation, to make that, and take a look cover crops from a different perspective. Usually I don't call it cover crops, but of course the language, it has to say it that way. I call them noble crops. They're noble. They can be anything that you want to eat. They can be feed for your animals. They can be food for you. They can just be cover crops. They just cover the soil. It can be anything that you like. If you only understand where they're coming from. And as I was coming in here, I was preparing to come to talk to you guys, and I was saying, I just gave a workshop, and I came from Ecuador to give this workshop in New York City about seed saving. And I was saying, they asked me to come in to give seed saving with a very scientific thing. Seed biology, seed chemistry, this is what happens. And then I was like, I would not want to do that. Let me start with something more ridiculous, something outside the box. And I said, how about ecological imperialism? Oh, we'll start from there. Let's talk about ecological imperialism. Let's discuss it from the point of view. Where does your food come from? Where are you from? You. Where are you from? And my student said, yeah, you are from Ecuador, he said. Yeah, I mean, yes, I am from Ecuador. I know where I'm from. I'm asking you, where are you from? So I'm from Italy. Okay. What is your main crop? Tomato sauce. Do you know where the tomatoes come? Yeah, from Italy. Maybe France. That's it. We have crowded so much this discussion, this conversation, that we didn't even know what is the history of our food. It starts with the conversation. We need to open up the conversation to these First Nations. And then we can actually see the cultural value towards it. And I will share something that somebody told me, not somebody, actually. I'm starting to work with this person because I really find that his work is gonna be something very important for seeds, heroin seeds program. At Arizona State University, there is this First Nation scientist that focuses in seeds. And he asked me like, okay, do you have a PhD? I said, I don't. I want to get 3, so I'm pacing myself. I said, 3? What the hell? I said, yeah, why? 5 seems a little bit excessive, so 3 seems doable. And I said, so what do you want to do? I explained, blah, 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 I want to do this. And I asked them, what do you want to do? And he explains a little bit of research, blah, blah, blah. And then finally I said, look, I have experience in nature-based solutions. I feel so smart. I've done this. I did in New York City, by the way. I traveled the Hudson River looking at these nature-based solutions. I know what to do. And he said, he asked me, he said, are they resilient? I was so confident, and when he asked, is it resilient? I didn't know what to say. I just stopped him there. How did they, bro? Fall down. Take a chill pill. I was really like I thought I was impressing this guy. Then threw me that question. Damn it. That's why I asked the audience, some of the people that know me, and said, don't ask me questions. Everybody else you can. He said to me the following, said, do you know why these nature-based solutions are not resilient? Now I'm curious, you got my attention. Why? Well, it's missing the ingredient in there. Why do we value the things that we value? Our social cultural value is missing in there. Soil nature-based solutions has no interruption with society. You don't see like it belongs to you. It's something that somebody did. So you don't have an investment on it, an emotional investment, a cultural investment. So those don't become resilient. The reason why those crops, those perennial crops, has been persistently living within these communities is because they have a value to it, not an economic value. It has a social-cultural value passed down from one generation to the next one. And that's heritage. That's part of the heritage. We need to have that conversation. How do we get invested in a project that we believe in? Only then it's going to be resilient, because then you will talk about passionate about it, you will pass it down this passionate about it, and it becomes a norm. It becomes part of the conversation. We are missing them. Cover crops, techniques are missing the conversation. There are many, many, many perennial grains right now being developed. Many. Right now here in upstate New York, I work with sorghum. Interested in sorghum? Sorghum is great. I'm using it for making beer. Beer is not so great, but hey, I have to start somewhere. You ask me how we make it popularized, you put in a thing everybody likes, beer. And there you have it. And I remember when quinoa became popular. And now you can buy quinoa and everything. But do you grow it here? No. But we should try to grow it, right? We should be trying to figure it out how to grow it here, because it makes it more resilient. But with sorghum, I can work in both frontiers. In soil health, as a soil amendment, as a commodity crop, to add in a beautiful taste to beer, which is pretty good. Also as a popcorn. Why not? Like in a movie night, you can eat a sorghum popcorn now. And we are growing it here in New York. So there is all these crops, all these small initiatives. Let's join in. I invite you to join in. There is a lot of things that we can do, and then we start changing the system, systemic design change. I like that question. It brought me around it, but I arrived to the answer.
Now, I want to ask about what do you do when, like, the heritage of a region is sort of antithetical to soil health? So, for instance, like in Kentucky, where maybe planting monoculture of corn or tobacco as 5 generations deep, and it's not predictable. How do you reconcile taking that heritage and making it something more productive?
Well, I go back into the history. Why are those crops not here anymore? Why has that become less profitable? Those crops has become less profitable. Those soils cannot grow those crops anymore. So when people has ingrained in a specific traditional technique, you see, there's a traditional technique that's passed down from 5 generations that you see as a traditional. This is my traditional way. And there is no way you will change it when numbers. Like, this is how your soil health should look like. This is the symbiotic indigeneity. Nothing of that will matter. It matters is what is the language that we speak universally. And that is, show me the green. Show me the numbers. And we can do that type of analysis. And we are trying to do that. In cotton, we are trying to do that. In cotton, we are interviewing farmers that are introducing one step at a time. Remember, 4 soil health principles. Each farmer right now, they are trying to introduce cover crops, not-till, into their cotton fields. We interview them. How does it look like after 1 year? Have you lose money? Have you make more money? How does it look next year? And now we are seeing positive numbers in economics. And when our next door farmer sees that, okay, you reduce the use of pesticides and that thing, and you still have the same bells? Are you serious? What? What? Really? You didn't invest more up front? Really? So you start the reconciliation from a universal language. A lot of these commodity crops are based in economy. And economy theory, it tells us that we need to grow. If we're not growing, what it means? We fail. We are failing in a drastic and fundamental way. And perhaps the fundamental way is your soil. And you start from there. You start building. You start showing, like, hey, you see, maybe cotton and tobacco is not the same thing. Hey, I learned to say tobacco too. I'm in the south now, so I need to start getting in the rhythm. So listen, take a look at this. Not the same crop, not the same commodity. But as they implement these methods, we are seeing positive results in their profit. What if you try it out? But the problem is that we are so motivated to make this change so quick. Tobacco, you grow it 100 acres, 200 acres, 500 acres. That's how you grow it. And sometimes we want to see so much change so quickly that a farmer comes in and is like, okay, let me put cover crops in 500 acres. Of course, you never work with cover crops. This is your first time trying. Of course you will fail. And this is our job. My job is to say, let's test it. Let's start with a small plant. And let's build it from there. We collect a baseline. If you manage this, it works. We move it to a larger area. It works. We move it to a larger area. The third time, you are in the rhythm. You have figured out your rhythm to manage the system. No-till, cover crops, continuous living roots, organics. You figure out how to do it. Then you can put in the whole field. That's our job as a technical service provider. To help the farmer make a smart decision, to get the slow numbers. Sadly to say, is money. And often is analysis in the commodity crop, and then comparing to a similar commodity crop in a similar area. Not two opposites. You cannot compare a growth in the Midwest and then you come and compare in New York City. It doesn't work like that. Two different climates. So it needs to be the comparison very closely, hopefully close counties, hopefully close counties, because the soil is not the same, but at least the climate is similar, at least the climate. So you can bring that discussion a little more.
I want to be respectful. Some of these people are farmers. They may want to go and have their early bedtime, but let's take one more question, and then Ñawi's nice enough. He said he'll mingle a little bit if you have some follow-up. So let's take one more question, and then we'll wrap things up. Anybody?
I've been trying to think about how you educate, not necessarily in a formal sense, but how you have conversations with people to make them understand some of these concepts that you're talking about. One of the things that I've been thinking about is, is the power of a consumer to make change. As you said, it's sort of based around the money. How can farmers do more to educate consumers about the kind of work that they're trying to do to make sure that the soil is healthy, to make why it's important, make the connection directly to them? Because a lot of people say, oh, yeah, I know what organic means. Well, it's interesting when you start talking to them, they don't really know. And they have a kind of cursory knowledge of it. But I really do feel like it's very important for consumers to start to demand that they want their food grown a certain way. They want to make sure that the soil is healthy. People really do care about that, but I don't know that they always see the connections. So how can, as farmers, we do something to sort of educate our public on a daily basis?
Very, very good. Extremely important question that I have been wrestling a little bit about it for a while. I will tell what I have done and see if it helps in a little bit, and what I have been doing in different instances, and see if that helps. I work with Cornell Small Farms when the program called Reconnecting with Purpose. And the idea is exactly this: how we reconnect when our customers, a farmer reconnects with the customers. And I work with a specific group that employ refugees. That's a beautiful history. Like, I want to support that. So, but the problem is a lot of farmers don't know how to tell a history. How to tell a good history. Not to just generate a history for the sake of generation, but a history that tells what are you doing as in the frontier of social responsibility and also in environmental justice. So, and we figured out that since they don't know how to tell the history, is extensions, university extensions, comparative, is the role of them to provide the technical support to help a farmer narrate the history, to help to bridge science communication. See, what you do as a farmer is a type of science. It's not leaving a laboratory from a prestigious named university. But if you think about the way that how you carefully calibrate everything, there's a scientific method that goes through. It's a science. So it needs to have a scientific communication there. So my job, it was exactly that. How can I incorporate both? What do you do in the farming aspect, in the technique, in the management? How you manage your soil? How you use those cover crops? What do you do when you crops? What kind of methods do you use? Do you use a method that falls under agroecology, permaculture, regenerative agriculture, sustainable agriculture? Because most customers identify those tags. They kind of understand what you mean. Not fully, but they kind of grasp, like, okay, I like this, I don't like that. Like for instance, organic, now most customers believe that that's greenwashing. So most customers, there's like organic, anything can be organic. It's not telling me anything about actually how is it grown. So they are looking into more sustainable practices. So what is a sustainable practice? So my job was to help them narrate in a way that customer can grasp. When we say cover crops, what do we mean by cover crops? And that's where I use the term continuous living roots. If you say that your soil will continuously be covered by living plants throughout the year, a customer gets it. Okay, that soil, it has constant vegetation. If I go to visit, it will look green. That's my imagination is driving that. So I help them to translate that. And I think it's our extension universities. At least each state has extension universities that are meant to provide those services. Now sometimes they are now extensive enough to provide to every single farmer, but also sometimes a farmer is afraid to reach out. It's like, I'm not big enough. I'm not big enough, so I don't need the help. You need the help. It's better to have the connection because something might come up that you can share. So that's one thing that I have done when I help them translate. And then in that component, I talk about the aspect that we forget about in regenerative ag. And something that, as I was talking with my boss and my job, soil health and regenerative agriculture, they are not the same thing. They are not. Soil health is one pillar of regenerative agriculture. So if you think about this, are interchangeable, that's false. It's one pillar. Regenerative agriculture actually is missing the second part, the social part, and that's the attitude, the social component. That is when I started looking into the farmer's social responsibility, how you are exercising that social responsibility. And I talk about the building capacity. Building capacity is labor. What kind of labor do you have? Are they all trained? Do they have continuously training? Do you provide the space to continuously train? What kind of background they have? And customers want to know that. And nowadays, it's even more important when we talk about JD, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. It's even more so that they want to learn a little bit more. How are you building capacity for all this society? So I narrate that these are actually, everything that you buy is actually pays a salary for refugees that otherwise don't have a way to get employed. Customers like that. Likes to feel connected, be part of it. But we need to have that conversation with technical specialists that can help you translate the science of your farming management, combine it with what you're doing in the social atmosphere, and put it in the hands of the customers. And hopefully you find the right channel. You know, it's not enough to just be posting in Facebook or Twitter or TikTok, Instagram. It's not enough. Sometimes you actually want to have a landing page where your information is carefully curated in a way that if I am a customer and I want to know that you are growing something beautiful, I want to know about that so I can easily find information. Sometimes a farmer don't see the benefit of having a landing page, of finding an easy way that the customer can connect with you. By having a Facebook page, you think that's enough. That is it. I just posted, I have eggs, come and get it. But then maybe they want to really see how do you taking care of your chickens? That maybe see an update of seasonal. And that's the part of technical specialists often we can help with. We sit down, we listen to your story, we try to articulate your vision. And that's what I have been doing a little bit more training with Michigan State University in looking into agricultural business models that focus in society and nature. Because I got a business degree. Kind of. Somehow, I don't really know. But I started discussing with these guys about agricultural business model that centers in society and nature. And we put the profit, we put it third in the line. We put it third. Not the key piece. So when a customer comes in, it's not the first thing that is a slap in the face. $10. It's more like a welcome. There is something for you here. Something you might enjoy here. And you might want to be part of this community. And all starts with that. You start with that, you might build trust. Trust translates to loyalty. Loyalty translates to a happy customer. Happy customer translates to happy farmer, hopefully. That. And then I work in the Amazon, in the Amazon, in the Andes, in other projects. And that's even harder because I work with people that don't read or write. You can't even print or create a website and give it to them. How do you communicate with them? Well, I take that time. I take that time to have a conversation with them. When they come in and interact with me, take that time. And that's what I teach them. So I help them to develop farm stands. I work with indigenous and small farmers across the Andes to sell their produce, to highlight their local crops, to bring it into the eye of society. And I encourage them and say, look, you cannot just sell this. No, selling is important, yes, but we are not here just to sell. We are in here to share our space, where we exist, how we live. So if somebody wants to buy, they are afraid of something that they doesn't know. Like sorghum, for instance, if you don't know how to eat it, you will be afraid. Like, what do I buy this thing? But what if you say, like, look, if you put that thing with bacon, I'm telling you, then I will eat that. So I encourage them to do that. They don't read or write. They cannot hand in business cards and like a check me out here, but they can do is describe it. I cook it this way, I do it this way, I usually put this way, and I eat it this way at this time. And then they start a conversation like, can I add this thing? Yeah, sure, why not? Can I add this other thing? Yes, why not? Just add it. Just do it. And sometimes I say like, look, sometimes we have less people and I'm teaching them how to do added value for chain, added value chain supply. So now I'm teaching them how to really prepare tortillas to make it fresh, but package it to give it to the customer. And sometimes they don't know, like, can I add fish in this thing? Yes. Yes, you can. Hopefully it's cooked, but you can. And I'm helping them to create a little bit of humor in there so they lose a little bit of nervousness. That also helps. Sharing a little bit, maybe finding a crop that's new. A new crop, don't just sell it. Talk to about it. Engage you with the new crop. Maybe cook it first. Try it out. Have a recipe. And share it. And say, like, this is how you do this. This is how it works. It can be used for this, for that, for that, for this, for that. Indigenous people that I have worked with, that's my other work that when I'm not in here, I'm doing it there, has been more about that, sharing our knowledge. And that creates circularity. But one thing I do want you to think about is not fast. Change is not fast. The human brain is a funny thing. It's not fast. It takes time and it takes persistence in order to create resilience. So if you just go and do the one time, it's like, oh, Ñawi recommended this thing. Damn it, I fell, he fell. Doesn't take, it takes time. Sit down with it, think about it, there is many ways that you can do this, but also take action. Indigenous philosophy, and also take action. It works.
Ñawi, thank you so much.